So the Gospels provide perspectives on complex activities, complex historical events. And once you say it's a complex historical event, you can look at something from different perspectives, and you're still saying something true, even if you don't provide the complete presentation of the event. So you can look at it from the perspective, say, of the woman who was healed from a 12-year-long flow of blood, or you could look at it from the perspective of the crowd wondering what he's doing, or one of the disciples wondering what he was doing, or from the perspective of Jesus. Sometimes Christ does things which are complex, has a number of different meanings and purposes in what he's doing for different audiences. One gospel writer might focus on one over another. You also have gospel writers writing to different audiences. It's really clear when you read them. Some of them explain to you the meaning of an Aramaic word or phrase, like Mark, because he knows his audience don't know Aramaic. Matthew doesn't do that. And then you have Luke. I think he's writing for a Gentile audience. So you can see that they're describing things so that the audience will understand what's happening and filling in some blanks. So some of the times they look a little different. What they're describing looks a little different. But that's because of the audience or their purpose. So let me give you an example. So you have the temptation of Christ. In Matthew and Luke, it's actually pretty long. It's, I forget exactly, maybe 12 verses. And then Mark has 2 verses, and he doesn't talk about the actual temptation. He says Christ was using an interesting term. I think you should understand it as cast out into the desert to be tempted by the devil. And he uses the term desert twice. And then Mark adds, and he was with the wild animals, not in Matthew and Luke. So here's the difference. In Matthew and Luke, you have this temptation that takes you back to the garden with Adam. So you're seeing that he really is undergoing the temptation like Adam did. As second Adam, he's fulfilling and passing the test of his allegiance to God. In Mark, he doesn't do that. He doesn't focus on the actual temptation. He focuses on the fact that Christ goes into a place that's a desert with wild beasts. And that's, if you look at the Old Testament background of that, that's a place of curse, the divine curse. So you're seeing in Mark, he's saying, yes, well, this temptation may take you back to Adam, but it takes you back to where Adam and Eve were ejected from paradise, because the term Mark uses that's unique to him for driven out into the wilderness. It's the same word used for Adam and Eve, driven out of the paradise. You have Mark saying that Christ, at the beginning of his ministry, is baptized. What does it mean for him? Well, it means for him undergoing the curse that Adam and Eve brought upon us. So Christ right there shows that he's going to end up on the cross. So that's the kind of differences you find, and those are not contradictory. It's his baptism and his temptation is a complex event. It has different meanings that in the presentation of the different gospel writers has a full, we see more fully all the different meaning that's being conveyed. The advantage we have in that is that the gospel writers are inspired. That means they have the mind of Christ, which is how Paul puts inspiration. Through the Spirit, you know what Christ meant by those actions because he tells us through his Spirit, through inspired texts.